Welcome to another episode of the Two and Under podcast. We might be 10,000 miles away, but we've still got Cup Fever. Cup Fever's hit in Brisbane. I'm sure it's hit in Victoria, where you two boys are. How you doing, Keegan?
Good, mate. How are you today?
I'm very good. Has Cup Fever reached Geelong yet?
No, we've still got Premiership fever here. So
I was going to say you probably never left, lost it, did you?
No. No, I've got it anyway. I'm getting excited. It's come away the last, 24, 48 hours with all the sort of transfer window shenanigans. So it's sort of just been put on the back burner. But yeah, looking forward to getting stuck into it tonight.
Yeah, the timing of the game's a bit annoying, with it being the end of the transfer window as well, because, like you said, it is going to be a bit of a distraction. But I don't think we should lose sight of the fact that this is Newcastle's biggest game in decades, you know? Well, after last week. Last week was the same, but it's the biggest sort of tie we've had in such a long time. Dimi, how are you doing?
Good, mate. It's exciting times. I've been feverishly looking at my flights to London and trying to swing the trip. Trying to swing a trip, but haven't had much luck so far with the missus trying to let that one go through to the keeper. But I'm working on it, and look, hopefully we'll do the right thing on Wednesday morning our time. But either way, it's very exciting.
You need to go back to Greece on another honeymoon, and then you can say, "Oh,
yeah.
By the way, I'm going to London."
Yeah. I'm not sure how a 4 or 5 day jaunt to London for thousands and thousands of dollars is gonna sit too well with the missus.
I've already started planning what I'm going to do, and where I'm going to watch the match, and how I'm going to take the next day off work and everything. But I think I'm probably getting a little bit ahead of myself. So what we're going to do today, anyway, is we're going to talk mainly about the Southampton game. We're going to preview that. And then, obviously, like you said, there's been a lot of transfer stuff going around as well. So we're going to cover that in part 2 of the show. But yeah, let's get into the Southampton game. So we're obviously 1-0 up from the first leg, which was 5 days ago. What's kind of, Dimi, I'll come to you first. What's kind of your reflections on that game? Now that's sort of almost a week ago now. And has it hit home for you yet that Newcastle are actually so close to a cup final?
It definitely hasn't hit home. Still, probably during the game, obviously you realise how big the occasion is, and it's a semi-final, but I still don't think I've grasped that we're 90 minutes away and we're hot favourites to get into a final. In my lifetime following the club, we haven't been this close to silverware that I can remember. So it is very exciting, but trying to tell myself that there's still 90 minutes to go, and hopefully the players haven't been booking their train and their plane tickets down to London like all the other Newcastle supporters, I'm sure, have been doing.
Yeah, most people I know have got free cancellation on hotel rooms and things. So as soon as we drew Southampton, that was it. They were booking hotel rooms and get sorted transport out. I think I heard that there's barely any trains back from London to Newcastle on that night or the following morning or something. So I think London's going to be well and truly taken over by Black and White if we get there. But Keegan, it's a different feel, isn't it? Remember the last final we were in was 2005, which was that was last semi-final we were in 2005 in Cardiff, and we were heavy underdogs for that, and we were absolutely embarrassing on the day. But it's a different feeling this time, isn't it? That was the FA Cup. This is the League Cup, but it'd be a big surprise this time if we don't actually go through and get there, wouldn't it? This week.
It will, but I'm definitely not letting myself even think about the final yet, because cup games are different. Like Southampton, we all thought Man City, Man United would be in the last 4, and they've come out and rolled Man City comfortably, really. It was a 3-0 result. So things are different in the cup. Everyone says that 1 goal advantage we have is going to be a of benefit because Southampton will have to come out and actually try and score to get through to the final. And, you know, we play our best when teams actually come out and play against us. But, like, the thought of inviting them to come and play against us is not, like, it's not something that sits comfortable with me. So it is not worrying, but it's nervous, really. Like you said, I think 99 was our last actual cup final against Man United. I remember I was in year 9 at school. So what was that? Maybe 13 or 14, maybe 14, 13. I can still remember getting up, and that was probably my first real heartbreak as a kid. Yeah. Was watching them back-to-back ones. So yeah, and thankfully I'm a bit older now, probably just as mature as what I was back then. But I still, you don't take these things for granted, and you definitely don't count your chickens before they hatch.
We were unlucky in 98 and 99 because we came up against Arsenal, who were doing the double, and we came up against Man United, who were doing the treble. So yeah. we were unlucky, and we weren't as good as we had been in previous years as well, because the entertainers was no more at that point. Chelsea was a big one where in 2000, where if we'd have won that game, we would have probably in the semi-final we would have played Aston Villa in the final. I'm convinced we would have won that FA Cup final. But we haven't been in a League Cup final since, I think it was 1976 against Manchester City, which obviously means we haven't had a home semi-final in any competition. We had it in the UEFA Cup when we played against Marseille, and Drogba did us on the away leg of that tie, but we haven't had a home semi-final in a domestic competition for 40 odd years, even more than that. So it's a really big one, and it's been a funny kind of build-up, like I said, because of the transfer stuff, and because we've already had that game last week. But do you think I've been thinking about this a bit over the last sort of week or two, but do you think our fan base is becoming a little bit spoiled already? And what I mean by that is I've forgotten what it feels like to concede a goal. When Adam Armstrong scored that disallowed goal last week, I was like, what's this? I totally had forgotten how it felt to concede an actual meaningful goal. Because obviously those ones against Sheff Wednesday had the weakened team out, and the ones before that were mainly consolation goals that we were conceding. So it feels to me like, because we've been so good and because we've been so relentless and picking points up and not conceding any goals, that whenever we're kind of slightly off our game a little bit, there has to be kind of an inquest, or there's a lot of chat and a lot of debate about everything that's going on. Maybe it's just because we're doing a podcast as well and we're so immersed in it all at the moment. But do you think, Dimi, I'll come to you, do you think there can be a case of setting standards too high, too soon? Or is that just a bit, do we just have to ignore that kind of stuff and focus on what's going on?
Well, it's very hard to ignore because, like I said, in all my lifetime, we've been mainly rubbish for the majority of the time, shipping stacks of goals week in, week out. So the fact that Pope's had 10 clean sheets in a row and we haven't considered it an actual goal for 3 months nearly is ridiculous to think of. So you always have that thought in the back of your mind, something's going to go wrong. But I think you just got to trust the lads and trust Eddie and trust the group. I think they've earned that trust in the last 12 months. But in terms of setting standards too high, it's obviously not realistic that Pope's going to have a clean sheet every single game. He's going to concede goals eventually. Law of averages will even out, but it's how we as a team react to that. I mean, it's okay to concede a goal here and there, but if we still can keep our consistent defensive structure, I think we're still going to go a very long way.
And I think the good thing is as well is that Eddie Howe and the players are not on social media while they're playing matches. So they're he's good at screening out the noise, and he's focusing on getting his players focused and ready for each challenge. And he knows that it's not all going to go all of our way all of the time. So he would probably say there's no such thing as setting standards too high. We just have to strive to sort of meet those standards. But it's natural, isn't it, Keegan, that expectations increase as success comes, even though we haven't won anything yet. But the sort of expectations around the club from supporters increases, and it gets more the better we're doing. And like I said, you concede a goal now, and it's like, how can we possibly have conceded a goal? Even though this is football, it's hard, you know. The opposition teams are good. Like, we're going to concede goals, we're going to go behind, we're going to lose matches. But it just feels so alien at the moment for that to happen, because it just doesn't happen.
It does. But actually, I've been thinking about this lately, and it's starting to piss me off a little bit. Like, people on Twitter, whatever happens, like, they go, oh, remember where we were 12 months? Like, that's great. Who cares where we were 12 months ago? Like, it's not about, like, you shouldn't judge what's happened today, this week, the last month on what happened 12 months ago. Like, it's a completely different club. Like, you shouldn't, it's got nothing to do with what's happened 12 months ago. If you're going to compare something, compare it to the last time we played a team, or the last time such and such played, or whatever, not judge the club. So I think, obviously, the better we get, the higher the bar goes with supporter expectations and stuff like that. But I've got no doubt the club's coaching staff and their extensive coaching and analytical team, that have their own internal KPIs that they work towards, and whatever they are, like, we'll never be privy enough to know that information. Even if we did, we probably wouldn't get 90% of it anyway. So, but they'd have their own markers that they judge themselves, whether they've had a good game or a bad game or whatever. It's just, I think it sort of comes to the point now where we just live in the moment, I reckon. Like, just enjoy Tuesday night, Wednesday morning for us. Like, don't worry about, oh, we beat them 4-1 6 weeks ago. Like, it's a different team. It's a different competition. The stakes are different. Like, if we win, we get 3 points. If they win this time, like, they might go to Wembley. Like, it's a whole different scenario. So I think it's sort of important just to live in the now and just enjoy the wins, move on from the losses. Like, don't get caught up in 2 weeks, 3. And that's why I said earlier, I'm not worried about Wembley or anything like that. I'm just worried about this game, and we'll deal with this game, and then what happens after that, then we can talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about the goal scoring issues we've been having in a minute as well. But it's interesting what you were saying there about the not looking back to where we were 12 months ago or pre-takeover, because it can be tempting at times to do that. But I'm very aware as well that it is annoying for people, for the reasons you've said. We all know what was happening before. We all know what the club is doing under Ashley. We're now a completely different club, but I know that myself. I've got a very kind of, and I'm aware of this, I've got a very kind of positive overall outlook because of the context and the history of where we've come from. And I know that can probably grate people a little bit sometimes as well, because I'm always like defending what the club are doing, and I'm aware that I can kind of jump sometimes to their defense, even if there's kind of valid concerns, and even if some of the criticism is things that Eddie and his team themselves would agree with, you know. So they would agree themselves that we've been missing chances, you know. But I just get a feeling when I see that someone say something like that, I want to like defend them and say, yeah, but this, and this. And I have to really catch myself from doing that sometimes. But I've just got the overall picture of like, this is a long-term project, and it doesn't matter. It does matter what happens in this game and if we get to the final, of course it does. But we're on the right trajectory, sort of thing. So I've got that overarching long-term view of it. But yeah, it's just an interesting conversation to have because of some of the back and forth and the conversations you get on social media, and some of the conversations that are within the fan base as well. Yeah, like Dimi, you're probably a little bit like me as well. Sometimes we sort of have that same kind of outlook. But do you think there can ever be a case of fans being kind of too positive and too optimistic, and not sort of acknowledging any issues that there are, or valid criticisms that there are?
Yeah, I am a generally optimistic person with all my countless sporting teams that I follow, that Keegan is well aware of. But I think it is also important to be able to criticise and critique the club, because that's the only way we're going to get better, and the only way we're going to be held in the highest standard in Europe, in the world, as we want to be. I mean, clubs aren't going to forever say, "Oh, good try, Newcastle. They're a good upstart. They've had a good run. They're doing well." We actually want to be held to the top standard, like Eddie says. You want to set the highest possible standard. So, if that means critiquing small aspects of our game, that's good for us. That means we've gone to that next level where we're actually critiquing small little issues, not issues, but small little details. And at the end of the day, in these big games, big tournaments, like the special one says, it all comes down to small details. So that's I think when we know we're on the right track as a club, when we're critiquing those small little details, because it means we're striving for absolute excellence and for the top of the game.
Yeah, and we know that this is exactly what Eddie Howe and his coaching staff are doing as well, aren't they? They're not sitting there saying, "That's great, we've done this, or this, or we've got this many clean sheets." They're picking up the minor details and saying, "We could do this better, we could do that better," and that brings me back to what I was saying about my unwavering confidence in what they're doing, and what we're seeing on the pitch as a result of the work that they're putting in. It's not like under previous managers where everything was just shit. You know, like Steve, what was the point in critiquing a Steve Bruce team because there was just so much wrong with it, and nobody really cared. But like now, you know, we're going to be playing in the Champions League at some point quite soon, whether it's next season or not. We're going to be playing in the top competitions. We're going to be challenging for things. So, yeah, it's that attention to detail and that real focus on how we're going to get better. So I think my kind of takeaway from this is to try not to jump to defense all the time. I still will if I think things are unfair, which I think they are quite a lot on social media. But I'll try and sort of take a step back and think, right, is that fair or is that not? Would Eddie agree with that or would he not? And maybe that's the way to go with it. What do you think, Keegan?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's it's. There's two choices you have on social media. You can go with the flow, or you can just bite on everything that you disagree with. And fair to say, if you bit on everything you disagree with, your thumbs would be bloody have arthritis in about 6 months' time. Yeah, you wouldn't sleep. Your battery would be gone. Like, just pick your battles. But do you know what? Sometimes it's not bad to actually be positive about something as well, instead of same the Sean Longstaff conversation. Everyone's quick to tell everyone how bad he is and what he can't do, but you don't see the other side of it. No one's saying, "Oh, how much this is what he can do." Like, it's a balance, so you can pick what you want. And I've sort of went down the path where I don't follow that many sort of club like Newcastle fan accounts, because it's just too much and it's overwhelming, and I like to have space for some other things on my Twitter, not just other things. Like, I don't like.
What other things do you have space for? What other things do you have space for on your Twitter, Keeks?
Some basketball, some footy, UFC. You know, I don't follow 38 sports teams like yourself just to constantly plug up my feed all the time.
More than 38.
Yeah.
All right. So
he's got a Congo table tennis favorite player that he follows as well.
Let's have a think about one of the things then that's been causing last week and previous games has been causing a little bit of sort of criticism and unhappiness is the missed chances. So with how big an issue are these missed chances that we've had? How can we address it? Because bearing in mind, we can perhaps have scored at least 2 or 3 goals against Leeds, against Crystal Palace and against Southampton. We could have done that. We've already scored 3+ goals on 6 occasions in the league this season. We've got 33 goals from 20 games, which is a rate of 1.65 goals per game. But we've also failed to score in 6 league games as well. Keegan, is this just a stage of our development? Is this like a bump that we're going to come up against? Last time this happened towards the start of the season, we went and beat Fulham and Brentford and scored a combined 9 goals in those games. So do you think this is a big issue, or do you think this is just something that is happening at the moment that we're gonna come through because we've just been missing easy chances that we'll soon start putting away?
No, I think it's a massive issue. I think honestly it could be the difference between us top 4, and if things don't improve, it could be maybe missing out in the top 6, because at the moment, like that Fulham game, we were lucky then. They copped an early red card and we sort of took advantage of that. So that's a bit of an outlier as well. But we were scoring worldies nearly every game before the World Cup started, and like it's not sustainable. Like we can't keep doing that. And I think we spoke a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, that we can't just keep rolling out the same players all the time and expecting the same things, because what's happening is we're rolling the same players out and the same things are happening, like we're not scoring and stuff like that. So I don't think it's going to happen, but I'd like to see a couple of changes to that starting 11, try and freshen up the squad. And like if they're not going to, we'll get on Anthony Gordon shortly, but if we're not going to bring in many numbers this transfer window, like we might have to just start Isak and start Maxi and try and give that team another spark. Because it maybe being unchanged is good for like being continuous and momentum and all that, but at the same time, they're really easy to figure out now because everyone knows there's a best 11 they're going to play, that he does this, he does that. Like Miggy, I don't think Miggy's had a shot really. I think he scored the first game after the World Cup. He's probably barely had a shot on target since that game because teams know now they're going to shut him out. He's going to cut inside. So bring Maxi on, give him start running at defenders now, and then drop a midfielder. We get that midfield cover. If someone gets injured, we do have that cover on the bench now. Like, good luck to work out which one you want to drop. Like, I don't get paid enough to think about that, but it's definitely a time now. I think we need to just give the squad a bit of a refresh and a rejig to try and, I don't know, stimulate some goals, because at the moment things are getting really stale and it's going to cost us, I reckon.
So, but having said all that though, like I said, I'm doing my positive thing again. We could have scored 2 or 3 goals against Leeds and against Palace.
But we didn't.
But we didn't.
Yeah.
And we missed chances. And there's
Fulham was the same too.
There's individuals who were very guilty of missing chances, and they're usually the midfielders. So Longstaff and Willock and Joe Linton have all missed gilt-edged chances lately, that they can't keep doing that. And Wilson hasn't quite been himself. But what's your view, Dimi, on this? Because I've seen some of the XG. Some people don't like that stat, but we've still had quite a high XG, which means we've been creating good quality chances. We just haven't taken them. So what's your kind of overall takeaway from all this stuff, Dimi?
Yeah, that's probably where I sit. If we're not creating chances and we're not scoring goals, then that's a big problem. And like Keeg said, it might cost us. Still in all these games, I mean, obviously, yeah, we're not taking our chances, but we're creating a lot of the time gilt-edged chances. I mean, very clear-cut professional footballers should be scoring chances. So as long as we're doing that, I think we'll be okay. And now that we've got the reinforcements back, we've got Isak back, Maxi's potentially due a start, Gordon's going to come in shortly off the bench, at least initially. We've got a lot of options now coming off the bench. So I think that chances are going to still be created. It's obviously whether we take them. Like you said at the start of the season, Jack, we weren't scoring. I remember the Bournemouth game where we all watched together up in Sydney. That was winning. We had chances, didn't score, drew 1-1. We thought, Jesus, we keep drawing. We're not scoring goals. What's going on? Sometimes you just need one game where you have a bit of luck, like a red card against Fulham, or ball goes off someone's penis, someone's knee, whatever, and you're away. So sometimes that's all it takes. And obviously we were scoring worldies, and that's not going to continue. But sometimes you do need a bit of luck in football, and we're probably missing that a little bit of luck in front of goal. And I think if we just take 1 or 2 of those chances, especially the midfielders, then I think the goals will start flowing. The chances are coming. It's just, in my mind, it's just a matter of time that we start taking some.
Yeah, and it's kind of good play by those 3 players I mentioned to be getting the chances in the first place, to be getting in the right positions. So we all know Jigsaw Joe can get in the positions and he just falls apart in the box. That miss he did the other day before he scored his goal was a really bad one.
Oh.
And then his goal, actually, because it came at him quite quick. Obviously, you expect professional footballers to score those chances, but still, it went into the side of the goal. It didn't go in the middle.
Yeah.
So that was a bit close as well. But yeah, but you were talking about luck as well, Dimi. But even the Brentford game, they had that goal disallowed as well, which gave us a kick of the backside in that game. And then we went and scored 5 goals. That was the Bruno masterclass that game. But we've definitely got it in us to be scoring goals. It's just who's going to be able to do it, who's going to put them away. Because you have to think that if we score a goal, if we score an early goal against anybody, then the challenge facing them is just huge, because nobody can score against us. So if we get that early goal, it's going to be a big psychological challenge for opposition as well. Keegan, you started talking about the team changes a little bit before, so we're gonna talk about that, because there's been a lot of discussion about this, especially because of the way Saint Maximin and Isak played when they came on against Southampton. I'm just going to play devil's advocate a little bit and make some suggestions for why he's been keeping the same team and why he likes having that stability. I think Eddie Howe's shown in his time that he likes keeping things the same when we're getting good results or we're playing well. He doesn't like changing. It's a meritocracy, and he keeps players in who are doing well. And we have, by and large, been playing well. Even the games where we haven't won, we've still been playing well for the majority of the games, and we should have won the games. So despite not scoring, I think, and Eddie said this a few times, he thinks that we've still been performing to a high standard using all the metrics he uses. So there's that. There's the defensive work that Joe Linton and Miggy and Willock and Longstaff put in. So the reason why we've had so many clean sheets is probably because they've got that strong midfield in front of them who are tracking back and doing all that defensive work. You've got Maximin and Isak, who are both coming back off sort of lengthy injury layoffs. And Howe has got previous form for easing players back in really slowly, or introducing them really slowly, like he did with Bruno. He said that Isak has had barely any training with all the games that have been happening. So he came back and then he got that start against Sheffield Wednesday. But other than that, it's been sort of games, and the team have only had a few days training in between that. So hopefully now, with this week break that we had, he's got a bit more training into his legs. And the other point I thought is that both Maxi and Isak can be very effective impact subs, like we saw against Southampton. So there's a few things. I think there's a few reasons why he likes keeping this team the same. I'm not saying that I think he should, because I think Isak in particular is going to be our number 9 for the next decade, hopefully. I think he's got a higher ceiling than Wilson has ever had. I think he's an outstanding player already for us, even in such a short space of time. But you've sort of said before, Keegan, what you would do. What do you think, Dimi? What do you think Eddie will do for this game, and what would you like him to do? Because they might be two separate things.
Well, what I'd like him to do is start Isak and Maxi. What I think he'll do is, I reckon he'll make one change. I think he'll start Isak and probably give him 60, 65 minutes and bring Wilson on in the reverse. I have my reservations whether he'll start Maxi. I'm not sure. Obviously I would. I'm not sure whether he wants to expose himself potentially at all defensively if Maxi's on the left wing without that Joe Linton, Willock interchangeable left-sided midfield. So we've had a bit of a luxury where Joe Linton's been starting on the wing, but he covers in the midfield. Willock then goes in the wing, and they sort of rotate. If Maxi plays, it's going to be a little bit more rigid, and we're not going to have that same rotation. So I'd hazard a guess that he may not opt to start Maxi just yet. He probably prefers him off the bench, and we've seen Maxi off the bench can win us games. But I do think Isak has shown that his sharpness is returned. I think he's ready for a start and ready for 60, 65 minutes. So I think that's going to be the change that Eddie makes.
I think that's what I would do as well. I would start Isak, and I would save Maxi as an impact sub later in the game for this one, because I think the defensive work that you get from Joe Linton and Willock is going to be important. But at the same time, I think we should try and go out and attack this game like we did against Leicester, where we just didn't take the chances. And I think at the minute we've probably got more chance of getting a goal from Isak than we have from Wilson, who's seemed a little bit out of sorts. What do you think, Keegan? What do you think he's going to do for this?
I think he'll go unchanged. I think I think he'll trust the people who got the job done first time, same 11, kept the clean sheets. How many clean sheets they've kept in a row? I think he'll stick with that, even under like 15 games, basically with this 11 undefeated, which is important. Like, we only have to draw the game. We don't even have to win it, and we'll go through. So I think he will prioritise this game ahead of the league game on the weekend. So I think he'll be unchanged. But I'm with Dimi. 100% I'd start Isak and give him an hour and then bring Wilson off the bench. I think he's due. Wilson's been off his tucker ever since he came back from the World Cup. So whether he's carrying an injury or he's just really badly out of form, like we might know. He might tell us one day. But yeah, that's what I'd do. I'd start Isak. I think he's in better form basically than what Callum Wilson does at the moment, and it's great that he does keep the same 11 and stuff like that. But at the same time, if someone's not playing that well, then if someone can take their place, that's how it should be, in my opinion.
Yeah, and just thinking from a purely attacking perspective, think about an attack of Saint Maximin and Isak and Miggy. That's pretty exciting with Bruno behind them and Joe Linton and Willock or Longstaff. That's really exciting. No defense is going to be relishing playing against an attack like that. No. And even the game against Fulham where we needed to score, but he threw Isak on at the same time as Wilson as well, and Isak was playing a little bit deeper. So I don't think that's something we'll see from the start a lot, but that's always an option as well, depending on what's happening in the game.
So that could be a reverse, potentially the last 10 minutes, where he brings Wilson on to play as the number 9 and Isak drops back into that sort of, I don't know, like the hybrid role of sort of second striker, number 10, kind of things like that. And you also got to remember, I mean, we'll have Gordon on the weekend he's fit, obviously he'll be available, so he can play a role for that next game. So I agree with you. I think with Dimi, I think Maxi's a little bit suspect in a game at the moment where they're not 100% sure of his defensive stuff. But Eddie did say after the Southampton game he was really pleased with him. He's really happy with his decision-making and stuff during that sort of little appearance he made at the end. But, yeah, I just think he doesn't trust him 100%. If we're 2-0 up after 65, 70 minutes, I've got no doubt he'll come on and play the last 20 minutes. He'll probably even score as well because, like I said, given the nature of the tie, they have to try and win it. So you might as well lose by 5 to try and score. So...
Well, they were both brilliant when they came on, and Maxi got the defender sent off as well. And Isak, I just think he's a phenomenal player. Like, from what we've seen of him so far, that not many players, I don't think, probably in world football could do what he did out on the wing there. So even though he's playing up front, he was dropping out into the channels, and he just absolutely pulled that defender's pants down, didn't he? I saw somebody comparing it to what Messi did in the World Cup in the Croatia game against, I think it was Gvardiol he did that against, but he just made him look silly, and not many strikers have got the ability to do that. And then never mind that, but to have the composure as well, and the quality, the execution to put the right ball right on the plate for Joe Linton. I think this guy is going to be, he's going to be worth every penny of that 63 million or whatever it is we've paid for him. And maybe getting him in now is like the old cliche. It's like a new signing because he hasn't been around, and even when he has earlier in the season though, he was scoring goals. So I don't think it's going to be long before he's the number 9. And I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be too surprised if he did start this game. But I've got a feeling that Eddie will go unchanged as well. I think this is the game where, like you said, we don't even need to win it, although that's not going to be their mindset. We don't need to win it, so we could go in, and what we've got is a solid unit at the minute that doesn't concede goals, so, and does still create chances and has been scoring a bit. So I think that'll be the way it goes, and we'll see what happens. But what a game! What a big game coming up! It's like we said before, there's been a lot of transfer stuff, so it's been hard to kind of focus too much on this. But Yeah, we'll be up at 6 o'clock my time on Wednesday morning, and it'll be 7 o'clock for you boys. So you'll probably be driving to work again, Dimi, at the same time.
Yeah, I'll be driving the missus to work, but she'll be driving the car and I'll be watching the game. And then when she gets to work, we'll do the swap, and I'll have to. Hopefully, by the time I get to her work, it'll be about 8 o'clock, so around about half time. So that hopefully I'll make a quick dash to my office and not catch the eye of any coppers on the road. That'll be nice.
Yeah, you don't want to broadcast your plans too much in case the police are listening to the podcast. We know that the Victoria Police do like to tune in the pod.
Yeah, well, I did do the last game. I did have to make the jaunt to work, and we did score when I was driving, and I definitely wasn't watching the road like I should have. I'm not going to condone. That's the way to drive, but sometimes you have to do what you have to do, and you have to multitask. So. Worked out well for Newcastle. Worked out well for me. I got to work safely, and let's hopefully I can do that again on Wednesday. And
you'll be listening to Mr. Happy Ando again, will you, Keegan, at work?
Yeah, mate. I'll have the dulcet tones of Matthew Racebeck and the ever positive Ando filling my ears from 7 till 9. So yeah, unfortunately, I start work at 7 a.m. every morning. So yeah, I don't get to catch much of the games live. I catch up on Smoko and lunch, watch a few highlights on Twitter, and then if it's worth watching, I'll come home and watch the replay again. But luckily I can pick and choose when I need to do that. But thankfully I've been able to do that a lot this season, a lot more than the last 10 years anyway.
Yeah. And how do you see this one going then? I think we're going to go out in this. I think we're going to score. I think we're going to score in the first half. I've been really confident all along that we've got far too much for Southampton, at the same time as being nervous about the gravity of the tie and the importance of it. But I think objectively, if you look at it, we've just got so much more than them, that we're so much better. You know, we're a team. It looked like men against boys at times, that game. I know that they had that good spell last week, and Nick Pope made a couple of good saves, but I just think we've got too much for them. I think it's going to be quite comfortable. I don't usually like making predictions like this in case I jinx it, but nah, I think we're going to win. I think it'll be 2-0 at half time, and then we'll score 2 more in the second half. It's going to be 4-0. That's my prediction. It's going to be a bloodbath. Prediction?
Yeah, I'm confident as well. I'm not going to go 4-0. I'm going to go 3-0. I think we're going to have too much for them, and I think we'll be up 2-0 at half time and sort of cruise our way in the second half with a party atmosphere at St James's.
You'll be searching for flights at half time.
Fingers crossed.
Keegan, prediction?
I'm going to go 2-1 win, and I'm going to go a bit Craig and make a stupid prediction that I'll probably live to regret at some stage in the next couple of months. If we win the League Cup final,
yeah,
I'll run a half marathon in my Newcastle kit.
There you go. With blonde hair.
No, just in the kit. I'm not. My appearance is bad enough without making it worse. If we win the League Cup final, I'll do a half marathon. I've never done a half marathon before, so I'll do it in my full Newcastle kit. Apart from boots, I'll have to obviously wear runners, but I can wear a shirt, shorts, and socks and do a half marathon. So you can cut that up and stick it on wherever you want to stick it.
We will do. Don't worry about that. I'm sure we will. All right. We'll have a quick little break, and we'll get back in straight after that to talk about the transfer news that's been going on, and that probably is still going on. I don't know if anyone's checked Twitter in the last half hour, but yeah, there's something might have happened already. But yeah, we'll be back in a minute. Has anybody checked Twitter? Have we signed anybody or sold anybody?
Well, according to sources, I've got no idea what sources they are. So please forgive me if you're listening to this. Eddie's spoken before his pre-game press conference, he's imitated that a loan for a loan, getting a player in on loan for the rest of the season is probably going to be the way they go. But it'll be someone who sort of fits what they do. It's not just going to be a body for the sake of a body. So that's important. And Bobby said that it's sort of looks like maybe a Ruben Loftus-Cheek on loan for the rest of the season. Craig claims his legs are made of dried spaghetti and not too in favour of that news. Yeah, that's what's broken in the last, I don't know, what are we, 40 minutes in. So,
all right.
As everything, when we wake up, we'll have 5 different names that are in for medicals. We've lost another 3 players, and Eddie's going to have to play centre midfield against Southampton. So
this time of year is absolutely ridiculous in Australia, because you go to sleep and it's around lunchtime in the UK, and you wake up and it's getting towards evening time, or it's getting towards night time. So a lot of the activity happens overnight. So if you wake up in the middle of the night to go to the toilet or something, or if one of your kids wakes you up and you check Twitter, you make the mistake of checking Twitter. Then you just start get white and you can't go back to sleep. So let's rewind though and talk about Anthony Gordon a bit, because he was confirmed. I think it was overnight last night. I know that we did the podcast about him. You did it, Keegan, with I think it was Craig and Mark the other day. So you've kind of had your say. You can talk in a minute, but Dimi, what's your overall thoughts about this signing? 45 million. Apparently, it's been a 40 million upfront payment. It's a lot of money, obviously, but what's your sort of overall thoughts about signing a player who, let's be honest, most Newcastle fans absolutely hated from the few times we've played against him? But yeah, take it away. What's your sort of thoughts about this signing?
Yeah, so they're probably a little bit mixed. Not the fact that he's a pork chop and the way he rolled around and acted against us. That's all by the by. That's part of the game. That happens. More so the price is a little bit high, in my opinion. I think the British market is very much overinflated, and there's not many good deals you can get in the UK when you buy players from other Premier League clubs. So, in my opinion, 40 million plus 45 million is a little bit high for a young winger in the Premier League. But I always have to fall back to the fact that Dan Ashworth is very keen on him. Eddie Howe's very keen on him. Probably Steve Nixon as well. So those 3 guys know way more than I'll ever know in football. So if they see something that we can't see, that he's going to make a difference and that price tag isn't exorbitant, then you have to trust them. But in terms of the actual player, I think he does fill a role for us. I think he'll be competing with probably Miggy and Maxi for that starting wing positions. And worst case scenario, even if he isn't a starter from day one, I think he's a far better player than Jacob Murphy off the bench. Oh, no disrespect to the shithouser Murphy, but he's a far better player and gives us another option off the bench that when things aren't going well, or if we're chasing goals as we were against the Saints the other day, you can bring on Isak, you can bring on a Maxi, bring on a Gordon. That could make the difference when we're chasing late goals, and it could prove to be a very shrewd signing in terms of the importance. The only caveat for me is the money, but have to trust Eddie and Dan.
Yeah, you look at his attributes. So obviously we've been doing what we do and go onto Twitter and look through all of these new accounts that give you all of the information and all the metrics and everything. So his defensive stats are better than Miggy's. You know, he runs and he tracks back and he tackles. He's got a lot of work rate. He's really versatile, which is a big attraction. I think he's both footed, so he can play in any position across kind of the front 3 or even the front 4 if you're going to count striker as well. He has played there before. Obviously, he's at a good age. He's only 21. He's played for the England youth teams and he's always had good reviews. He's got 4 goals in 9 games for the England under-21s. I think something obviously that attracts Eddie Howe to him is he should be coachable. He should be able to get into him and teach him what he wants him to learn. And something that I think has been missed a little bit is that his homegrown status. So every 25-man squad has to have 8 homegrown players in it. And for Newcastle at the minute, only Willock and Longstaff of our really important homegrown players are under 30. So that's something that we know we're going to have to do. We're going to have to get younger players into the squad, all across the squad. You've got Wilson, who's 31, Trippier, who's 32. You know, these are the key players who are getting on a bit, who are going to move out of the homegrown quota. And you look at the sort of the transfer hit rate, like you were saying, Dimi, of Howe and Ashworth. I think there's only Chris Wood and Target who have potentially not fulfilled what they were supposed to do, although a lot would argue that Chris Wood has, and we've ended up getting money back for him. So you have to trust what they're doing. I want to touch on the tweet that we put out a few days ago in a minute, but first, Keegan, have you got anything to add or anything new that's popped up since you did the pod the other day?
No, not at all. Just he loves the Metro Centre more than I thought he would, so that was a pleasant surprise as well. Ever since we done that pod a few days ago, I'm really happy with this signing. I think like the only flaws I guess people pull up is what he's like on the pitch, but at the end of the day, like the only kind of shit things really is diving, and that's an easy fix. Like I love the way that he stood up to Trippier, and like he's a 21-year-old kid playing in front of 50,000 opposition fans, and he wasn't afraid to stand his ground and get stuck into him and stuff like that. And I think that's a really good character trait to have. He's passionate about wearing the shirt that he plays for and sticking up for himself and all that sort of stuff. So our team is molded like that's us, and we always go in and we stick up for each other and stick up for ourselves and stuff like that. And I think apart from all his skill and ability and stuff like that, I think his off-field stuff, and I've since learned he's done a lot of things in the community around the Liverpool area and stuff like that as well. And I mean, it sounds really stupid, but him walking around the Metro Centre and in an afternoon shopping at JD Sports and that, like he seems like a normal 21-year-old kid. Like, good on him. Like he is who he is. He's confident. He doesn't care what people think about him. He dresses how he likes. He looks how he likes. And I love people like that who aren't afraid to be themselves.
I think he just likes being able to go out in public because he couldn't really do that around Liverpool anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if this is true. Like I said, I preface this. I read this on Twitter that he couldn't get a cab home from the Metro Centre, and some dude drove him. I don't know if that's a load of shit or not, but if that's a true story, then
it probably is. Yeah,
that's a pretty good story too.
You can imagine Newcastle fans seeing him and talking to him and then taking him where he needed to go. Like, I think that's perfectly plausible.
Yeah, he probably just would have taken him to a hotel. I doubt he's got a house or anything at the moment, so it's not like he's given up his home address to anyone.
But it was really interesting. The tweet that Craig put out, a tweet from our account asking about Everton fans, how they felt about losing him. And I think it's really important to listen to what fans of a club think, because we've had opinions about players before, and they've gone on to other clubs, and everyone's just said that our opinion was invalid or didn't listen or didn't care to what we were saying. So it was really interesting that they were almost every single one of them was happy to see him go. There was 800. There's at the time of counting, there's over 800 replies, which was quite astonishing, really, for a tweet like that. And they were almost all happy to see him go. Even the ones who like him and think he's got potential, they said that the money was too good to turn down for them at this time. They said a lot of them said he was worth half of what we've paid for him. There was a lot of negativity about his attitude. There was a lot of people saying he's not fit enough and he's blowing after 20 minutes, and his lack of end product as well. So it's understandable that they would feel like that about him at the moment. He had his head turned in the summer by Chelsea, who bid 60 million for him. And you look at his stats, and he's only got 7 goals and I think 4 assists for Everton. So maybe it is a case that it was a bit too much too soon for him. Maybe it went to his head. But I mean, listening to his interview, and he's he's a 21-year-old kid, working class kid from Liverpool. I think he's probably going to be a little bit rough around the edges in some ways. He's probably a little bit immature in some ways as well. But I would be amazed if he comes into Newcastle, giving it the big one, and starts sort of having a bad attitude around the place, because he just won't get in the team. He'll get sent to train with the kids, and he'll get sent away until he sorts himself out. I don't know what happened at Everton, what happened, but that's a toxic environment at the moment. It's a club in a terrible state. It's what we have experienced ourselves at various times under Mike Ashley. So it's hard to judge anybody too much off playing in that environment. But if he does have attitude problems in the future, or if we do have problems with him, then we can't say that we haven't been warned. So maybe this is something just to think about. And maybe he's just going to be someone that you love when he's on your team and you hate him when he's against you. And I think there's been a lot of comparison with Craig Bellamy about it, but I think that might be the way it might go. But where do you think, Dimi? Where do you think he's actually going to fit into the team? Because we know that Howe doesn't bring players in straight away, so he's unlikely to be starting for a while. But where do you think he's going to be playing for us when he does get on the team?
Definitely for me, he'll be on the wing. I think he's another option for, like I said before, for Miggy or that left wing position as well. I think one of his decent attributes is he can go both ways, can go inside, can go outside on left and right foot. So that's always handy. Obviously, we know Miggy on the right wing has got no right foot, so he always cuts in. So that's handy to have someone who can go both ways. Initially, I can't see him starting. He's going to have to learn the Eddie Howe way, let's say. He's going to have to learn the way we train, the intensity that we play with. I mean, just judging by the few clips that we've seen of him already, he does have that intensity when he plays. He does harass, he does chase, he does do his defensive work. So that's probably something that did attract us to him. And there is a player there, but he's obviously very raw. So he may take some time to get into the team, which again comes back to my point in terms of the resources. You're paying $40 million for potential of what he could be, or what he's going to give us for the next 6 months. If it's for potential, then maybe yes, he's going to be worth that. But for the next 6 months, I think we're going to be in for a bit of a shock if we think he's going to be a starter every week and dominating down that wing.
Yeah, this is a really important point, because 40 million in football now isn't actually in the Premier League isn't actually that much compared to what it used to be. And I think that if we're expecting to be coming out with goals and assists and everything straight away, that's not going to happen. He's far from the finished article. But Newcastle United are now in the business of spending 40 million on potential and on squad players. And that's a mad thing to think about, considering it's not that long that we couldn't afford to sign Hamza Chowdhury on loan from Leicester City. So having these, it's gonna take time to adjust to this mindset of we've got money and we're gonna spend it on potential. And if Anthony Gordon is not a starter, even in 18 months, if he's not a first name on the team sheet, guaranteed starter, that's fine as long as he's progressing, because he'll still only be 22 then. And we're going to have extra games through Europe as well, so he's going to get plenty of game time. Anything to add there, Keegan, or any thoughts around that? It's quite nice, isn't it, to support a club where we can just go and drop 40 million on someone who's not a guaranteed starter?
It's just exciting to support a club who's going to buy players. Like, that's not living the last 3 or 4 days of a transfer window, basically hoping that the club doesn't sell any players because they're not going to bring any in anyway. So that's a nice change. But yeah, I'm confident he'll fit in and things like that. He seems like a good kid. You got to remember as well, we spoke about that on the podcast we did about him. He's a boyhood Everton fan. His whole family, all his friends are Everton fans, and he carried that burden with him every single day. So he rode the losses really hard, because he'd go home and he's a fan as well. And not that Like sometimes, and people sometimes don't like to hear this, but players don't carry losses with them for 3 or 4 days like you do. Like it might be the next day and bang, have a review, get it out. Let's focus on the next one. So, but he did, and he carried, and given the shitstorm that they're in at the moment, like I think it just got to a point, even for his mental health, where he just thought, I need to get out of here. Like it's just weighing me down, and I think he's going to come with us now. He's going to feel like he's got a weight off his shoulders, and he can just go and play and enjoy playing like he's a 21-year-old kid. He should love doing what he's doing. He shouldn't have to carry that burden around with him all the time. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do. And like I said, I'm not fussed if he comes off the bench all the time. Just come and play, mate. Come and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, what matters in the long term is that we have a useful player. It doesn't matter if he's not doing that straight away. So I think our coaches will be good at allowing him to ignore the price tag and just tell him to get on with his football. Come off social media if you have to, and just get on with it. And I think he's at the right place for that. The change of environment should do him the world of good. All right, that's Anthony Gordon. We've had a bid accepted for Harrison Ashby as well, who's a young defender from West Ham. 3 million for him. He's out of contract in the summer. We were chasing him last summer, just like we were with Gordon. So you can see there's sort of joined up thinking and progression planning going on. Good. Ashby's only played 7 games, I think, for West Ham. He's only made 1 league appearance, but 21-year-old, by all accounts, he's got a good reputation. I don't know if either of you saw the clips that were doing the rounds of him today, but he does have a bit of the Trippier look about him, doesn't he? Did anyone see it?
Go, Dimi.
Yeah, look, I did see the clips on socials, but obviously I've never seen him play live. Look, if he's going to be a backup to Trippier, probably no better right back to learn under. So I think it's a positive move. Again, it's another young English player. Doesn't count towards a 25-man squad being under 21 as well. So that always helps. But yeah, in terms of his actual performance, I'm not too sure we're going to see much of him in the first team, if I'm honest, for the rest of the year. But as a development player, why not?
Yeah, I think it's good news, obviously, that Trippier signed his new contract as well, but there's nobody better to learn from, not just in terms of right back, but just people in general. I think Trippier, the impact he's had has been phenomenal. So it's good. He's going to be good for any young professional coming in, so especially someone who's playing in the same position. And because he's under 21 as well, it means that we can maybe keep Kraft around next season. He's been injured this season, but he could stay around as part of the squad potentially. And Ashby won't be counted in a 25-man squad. And we're going to need the bigger squad for Europe. So sensible signing. Glad that West Ham have accepted that bid, because if not, it was probably going to have to go to a tribunal in the summer, I think, which could have gone anyway, sort of thing. So that's a bit of good news. And then the one really surprising news this morning when we woke up and checked Twitter was about Shelvey. So, yeah, it seems that Shelvey is going to Forest, and that's almost, I don't think it's been confirmed yet, but all of the credible sources are saying it's going to happen. There was talk that it was going to be for 10 million, which sounded a bit far-fetched to me, because he's only got 6 months left on his contract, and he's over 30 and he's quite injury-prone. You can see why this move would appeal to him, just like with Chris Wood, because he's going to get the security of a longer-term contract. He might even get a pay rise. God knows what Forest are doing, but maybe we can throw Ryan Fraser or Mankio or someone in with him as well at the same time. But it was an interesting one, this one, wasn't it, Keegan? Because on the face of it, we don't have a lot of central midfielders. So Jonjo's only played, I think, 34 minutes or something in the league this season. He's been injured. But yeah, what are we going to do about trying to replace him? Or do you think the fact he hasn't been playing, well, I know vaguely what you think, but do you think the fact he hasn't been playing means that they're not going to try and replace him? How do you think this one's going to go?
I'm not sure. I don't know. And that's the honest answer. I hope we replace him, because if we're going to stick with playing 3 in the midfield, I think it's good to have someone on the bench that can come play that role. But I definitely can see a point where maybe a Joe Willock drops to the bench, as harsh as that may seem. Maxi or Gordon start on that left wing, and we sort of get our midfield cover internally rather than playing all four of them at the same time. Like it will obviously upset that little midfield balance with Willock and Joel Linton playing, but I just think Joel Linton does play his best as a midfielder rather than that interchanging. And I think Willock can be a really impactful sort of player to come on in that last 20 minutes with his running ability and his speed that I didn't know he had until this year. Some of his running down that wing's really blown me away, and he could be a really valuable asset. And I think on the flip side, I think Longstaff can play that sort of number 6 role and allow Bruno and Joel Linton to sort of get further forward, where I'm not sure if Willock can do that as good as what Longstaff can. So maybe that's how they end up going. If they don't get anyone on loan, that's definitely a lever that they can pull to try and give themselves that midfield cover. We've still got Elliot Anderson can sort of play in there as well. So there is options there. But yeah, ideally on the surface, losing Chris Wood and Shelvey and only getting Gordon in would seem a bit of a step backwards. If I think most of us thought we needed maybe 2 or 3 players just to top up that squad for the rest of the year. So it's going to be a fun last 48 hours.
Another thing I was thinking is that potentially you could go to the 2 in the midfield at some times, and then Isak could play a second striker, or Gordon can do that, or even Miggy can do that. And obviously that's probably Anderson's one of his good positions as well. So there is options, but yeah, like there's going to be a lot of people who are saying that, you know, we need a midfielder. I think you saw the panic or the worry when Bruno looked like he was going to have a long-term injury. So all it takes is for any of those midfielders to get a knock and things start getting a little bit worrying. And the style of play we play is pretty intense as well. So we'll be very lucky if we went the rest of the season without getting any injuries or without having. I mean, you can see the players are fatigued in some games as well. So we need to be able to freshen things up a little bit. But at the same time, the club are not going to just go and get someone for the sake of it. They're not going to get someone who doesn't fit into what they're doing, like you just said before, Keegan. So what about you, Dimi? What did you make of this move? It was a bit like the Chris Wood one, that it came out of the blue a little bit, but what did you think of it? And also, what's your kind of overall thoughts about Shelvey's 7-year career at Newcastle? He's part of the furniture, really. He's been here a long time.
Yeah, I'm shocked he's been here that long. I remember his debut. I was at Disneyland trying to find Wi-Fi service for Newcastle versus West Ham, and I was in the Disneyland cafe, whatever it was, just flicking my phone for the scores, and got a bit of a dirty look from the missus as I usually do. But it was a great debut. I remember he pinged an unbelievable through ball. I think it was to the right wing to.
It was Janmat. I saw it on Twitter before. Yeah, it was Janmat.
Or the Janmat. Janmat. Yeah. It pinged a beautiful ball diagonal about 60 yards. I thought, oh yeah, Jonjo can stroke the ball. So it's been up and down for him. He has frustrated me. He has been a bit of a loose cannon at times. So look, I don't think it's going to be a huge loss to the squad. I think we've gone past him, and I think the players in midfield have definitely gone past him. He's not a starter, so if Forest are going to be stupid enough to give us 10 million or whatever they're going to give us, good luck to Forest. Thank you very much for for 15 million for Chris Wood, and then 10 million for Shelvey. That'll be nice.
And what about the squad? Do you think, because we were linked immediately almost with Sander Berg, who plays for Sheffield United yesterday. So can you see kind of someone like that coming in as sort of a backup, or somebody who might come in and be able to contribute as well? What do you think is going to happen with that?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be important that we don't just bring in a backup who's not up to the quality of the rest of the players. I think it's got to be someone who can fit in and can be a starter if need be, week in, week out. So I wouldn't be signing anyone just for the sake of signing someone. But, I mean, Berger's a young Norwegian kid. He's been in English football for a few years. He seems to have a decent profile. Not a huge fan of Loftus-Cheek. He seems to be around for about 15 years, but he's only like 24 years old. I don't know how that works, but he seems to have been playing for years. But look, as long as they improve the squad, or they're up to a Longstaff or a Willock level, I think we take that. If they're below that level, I don't think there's any point just getting someone in on loan for 6 months. I'd rather just give Anderson a go, or just mix up that midfield, maybe drop Miggy a bit deeper and see how that works.
Yeah, I've started already looking ahead to the summer because this is going to be a big, big summer. I think especially we will be in some kind of European competition. So I think the way the club will do it is to not sort of panic buy somebody now when they could wait till the summer, and we'll know what competition we're in. We'll know what sponsorships we've got. We'll basically just be able to go big in the summer. So I think they're probably going to keep the powder dry for that. So a loan would be good and would make sense as some cover. But like you said, it has to be someone who's going to be good enough because there's a decent chance we're going to have to use them at some point. I think that's about it. I said it would keep it to an hour. We're on an hour and 5, so that's not too bad an effort. You boys are ahead of me as well. You're an hour ahead. And of course, we've all got to go onto Twitter now and check what's happened in the last hour as well.
Yeah. So nothing's because we're an hour ahead, so nothing happens in the next hour. So you don't have to worry. You can go make yourself a cup of coffee and get yourself a biscuit and watch the TV because nothing happens in the next hour. So there you go. Life spoiler for you.
There's a life spoiler. There's a life spoiler. And you can keep using that joke, Keegan, because it's pretty funny. We'll let you keep using it.
Thanks.
I like it.
I will.
All right, so we will be back for a review of the Southampton game when we will hopefully have a League Cup final to look forward to, which still sounds crazy to say, but if and when that happens, that's when I'll start getting really nervous. I don't think I'll be able to concentrate on anything for the next 27 days or however long it will be until the game. So yeah, and it'll be good because the transfer window will be closed as well. So if you like what you slam shut, sorry,
yes, that's the official terms. Yeah.
So if you, as ever, if you've liked what you've heard, please give us a like and a subscribe, and we will see you in a couple of days. Thanks, Keegan. Thanks, Dimi.
Thanks, boys.
See ya.